All right, today we're going to talk about something really fascinating. It's an artistic experiment that completely blurred the lines between a human author, a machine, and the reader. And it did this long before our current AI boom.
Just think about that for a minute. We tend to see poetry as one of the most personal, most human things we can create. But what happens when you introduce a ghost in the machine? What happens when an algorithm gets to be the co-author?
Well, our whole investigation today centers on this book. Now, it might look simple, but the process behind it was honestly revolutionary. It's a piece of art that forces you to rethink everything you thought you knew about where creativity comes from.
So here's how we're going to unravel this. First, we'll get into what the pink noise experiment actually was. Then, we're going to break down the totally new creative relationship it created. We'll look at the strange and beautiful results it produced, and then see what it all tells us about art and, yeah, the future of creativity itself.
So, what did the poet Hsia actually do back in 2001 that was so out there? The idea was so simple, it was genius. Hsia took 33 of her own poems written in Chinese, and she just fed them into this really primitive, early online translation tool. Now, this was not the Google Translate we have today, okay? This was early 2000s tech. The results were, well, they were clumsy, super literal, and they totally missed the nuance of the original poems. But here's the kicker. Instead of fixing the mistakes, she published them right next to her originals. The glitch wasn't a problem to be solved, the glitch was the art.
And what this process did was create this incredible new dynamic. Some scholars call it a three-way triangular relationship. See, it's not just about the writer and the person reading anymore. Suddenly, there's a new player at the table.
To really get what's happening here, we need to know this term, defamiliarization. It sounds academic, but it's a pretty cool idea. It's the art of making familiar things seem strange again so that you actually see them in a new way. By running her poems through this clunky machine, Hsia was making her own words unfamiliar, forcing all of us to look at language itself in a completely different light. And this chart breaks down how that new relationship works perfectly. First, you have the author, Su Yu. She starts everything, but then she lets go. She gives up control. Then you have the machine. It acts like an agent of pure chance, right? It just translates literally, introducing all these errors that somehow create new, accidental poetry. And finally, there's you, the reader. You're not just passively reading anymore. You are forced to compare the two texts, to interpret, and to basically become a co-creator of the poem's meaning in that gap between the original and the translation.
So what does this accidental poetry actually look and sound like? This, right here, is where the whole experiment gets truly beautiful. Okay, just look at this example. A common Chinese phrase that means I'm speechless gets translated by the machine literally as words did not pass through me. You see, the intended meaning is gone, but in its place, a new, and you could argue, much more poetic and haunting image is created. This is it. This is how the machine's failure is actually the source of its artistic success.
And the book is just filled with these kinds of gems, phrases that are just a little bit off, but they somehow perfectly capture a feeling. There's this strange melancholy beauty to a line like, I'm stuck in slow gear. It's probably not something a person would write, but it feels so deeply human, doesn't it?
Or how about this one? It's that slightly awkward word, goodies, that turns a totally mundane sentence into something oddly specific and kind of charming. The machine's lack of sophistication creates this totally unique voice. It's naive, it's literal, and it's surprisingly evocative. So the crucial takeaway here is that this was never about just getting a translation wrong. It was about creating an entirely new kind of artistic experience for the reader.
Hsia wasn't trying to show that machines were bad at translation. No, she was using the machine's predictable, literal process to crack open the unpredictable nature of language, of meaning, and of our own interpretation.
And get this, the actual design of the book reinforces this idea. It is brilliant. Say you had the poems printed on semi-transparent pages. This means that as you're reading, the original Chinese text and the machine's English translation are physically overlapping. They get jumbled up into this visual pink noise that you, the reader, have to untangle. The form of the book perfectly mirrors its entire concept.
When you get right down to it, the message is pretty profound. Pink noise shows us that art doesn't have to be the singular vision of one lone genius. It can be a collaborative process, a kind of dance between intention and pure accident, between a human, a machine, and an active audience.
So why does this quirky little poetry experiment from over 20 years ago matter so much to us right now?
Because frankly, it was prophetic. Hsia was playing with procedural generation, with machine collaboration, and with the whole idea of finding beauty in errors long before tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney made these things household names. She was asking the really tough questions about digital creativity before most of us even knew what questions to ask.
And that leaves us with maybe the big question for our time. Hsia used a dumb machine to create incredible art. Today, our machines are getting smarter by the second. So as that line continues to blur, who's the artist? The person who has the initial idea, the person who writes the prompt, or the algorithm that does the work? Pink noise doesn't give us an easy answer, but it brilliantly teaches us how to ask the right questions.